All right, everybody. So it's been like 3 months since I last did a video. This one I thought would be kind of interesting. I've done a lot of things actually in the last 3 months. Probably deployed more applications than I have in any other given span of time, which is kind of cool because when you do stuff like that, when you have a higher frequency of project types, particularly when it comes to more web applications as opposed to building out e-commerce and other and CMSs. You get to try a lot more things, which is really cool, and you kind of get to refine your architecture because what I've found typically in the past in doing other jobs is you're working on one application, maybe two applications at a time. It all depends, right? It all depends on what kind of company you're working for, what kind of client you're working for, how many products they have. Is it a single product company and you're kind of working in the same code base all the time? So like I said, it all depends. But today I want to talk about multi-spas. Um, Sorry about the spelling error there. I should say multi-spa with an S, but it says multi-spa with an A. Anyways, so what is a multi-spot? Well, probably a lot of you will know what a single page application is. So a single page application is going to be an application that is served from one UI or one main file, and then it's going to make a bunch of different calls out to your API or several APIs, various APIs. There are certainly some advantages like that. After your initial load time, the application runs very fast, and it runs in the browser. And there's lots of other little things that we can do with it, like if we want to create a progressive web app, that becomes a lot easier, things like that. But typically what I found is when you start dealing with much larger applications, breaking it out into a multi-spa works really well. Now, we can't just think of application performance. We also want to think of the kind of team you're working on. If it's a team working on a single page application, especially at the beginning, typically there's a lot of people working over each other. It can be difficult to keep your code clean, depending on your teams and your juniors' ability to work with Git and rebase and things like that. So, but with a multi-SPA, you can definitely break the product out into several different front-end UIs, and people aren't stepping over each other, and there's probably more individualized ownership of the code base, which is also good when it comes to individuals taking pride and being successful at what they do. In terms of taking ownership of their code that they write in that part of the application. So now where multi single page applications play really well is not just in managing a team, but if the application is fairly large. So you might run into that. An application might have several sections, might be a very large, multifaceted application, but at the end of the day, you need to do things like share authentication throughout. So think of, one example you might think of is if you look at Google. So Google itself has many, many applications that run off the same authentication. So, you're going to have Google Drive, you might have Google Meet, Gmail. Like there's a lot of applications, and yes, they share the same authentication, but they're certainly built, and a lot of them are built as PWAs as well. So they're built in their own, their own files served up for the UI. So that's what we're going to look at today is multiple single page applications and how that works. I drew a very simple diagram here, but in SPA, you can see the entire application is served from one file, and then it reaches out to your API or multiple APIs and does those calls there. The star would basically be any endpoint passed with pass a / after after the main domain here. Now this varies over here from multi-SPAs. You can see a multi-SPA might be held in a settings section, a scheduling section, and a customer section. These individual sections would kind of be loaded with their own file. Like with with their own JS file. So the difference, say, between an SPA and a multi-SPA is with the SPA, you're going to load everything from one JavaScript file, or you could. That would probably be the recommended way of doing it. And then your multi-page application, they're probably going to have two files. So you're going to have files that are shared among them, like managing the authentication, pulling in the user details, the authenticated user details, doing the check to make sure they are authenticated. And if they're not authenticated, then you're going to handle certain things like sending them back to an authentication page. to log in to get their token and to continue on. Past the star here, the routing, is anything past here. We could have routing with several endpoints after settings that are managed in there. Now, the example I'm going to show you guys in particular is with Vue and Vue Router. So we'll get into it here. All right, so here I've gone ahead and I've actually created the application. So if we come up here, you can see I use the Laravel installer to do this. You can, if you go to the installation docs with Laravel, everything's laid out pretty clearly there. You can download, you can install it using Composer, or you can download the Laravel installer via Composer, and then it takes care of all the Composer commands. And I do believe npm commands that are necessary in creating the application. All right. So that's what we have here. Now I've already brought in Vue in here, so now we can actually use Vue in our application. The two files we want to go to here are going to be our JS file. We'll actually use the app.js file, and we'll just handle everything in here. So in this case, we'll import Vue from Vue. Sorry, I should not be doing it that way. We'll import Vue from Vue in here, and there's a number of things that we need to do in here before I get too far ahead of myself. We do need to set up our routing, and the way our routing is going to work with our individual parts of the application and how we are going to bring in Vue Router with that. So actually, in this case, like already in the Bootstrap file, we're bringing in Axios, which is what we're going to use to make requests to the backend. We're not going to do any requests ourselves to this. It just basically I'm going to show you how the multi-SPA works in terms of breaking things out past sections, and we'll go kind of based upon the diagram that I already created in there. So first thing we want to do here actually is we want to go to our routes file, and we'll go into web. And this is where everything's going to start getting loaded from. So we're not going to deal with authentication like I mentioned. I'll probably do authentication in a later video, and I'll show you guys how I do it through Passport. Passport, for some applications, a lot of people might think that it's overkill. It's, in my opinion, it's not, because it always leaves the opportunity for you to a much easier way to set up authentication with other mobile applications, right? Or if you want to allow somebody else to access features of your API from another application on the web. Okay, so Laravel makes this really easy for us. I'm going to create 3 different sections here, just like we saw initially. We'll have a settings section, all right, and then in here we'll put Vue, the Vue tag. There's a couple of different ways that we could do this. We could actually probably use a Vue as opposed to doing it this way, but I'm going to do it this way nonetheless. Okay, so we're going to have 3 different files here. So I'm going to say we'll have settings.index for this one, and then we do need to do a little bit of regex here to identify what this is. Now I've put a question mark in here, so basically no matter what, any endpoint after settings is going to load in the same file, and then our JavaScript application is going to take over that. Our Vue application is going to take over that with the routing in there. Okay, and that's all we need in here. So to make sure that it actually loads this in past settings. There are some other little things you want to be aware of, like if you do have a not so dynamic page, or you have a page that you need to load in that has settings, but it doesn't go through the Vue application, you'll want to put that in front of this so that when the array of endpoints is parsed in Laravel, it pulls in that file if it matches first, as opposed to matching to this in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll do this for 3 other sections. Okay, so I think I did settings, I did customers, and then what was the other one? Scheduling. Okay, and we'll say scheduling. Now we will, let's see here, we're going to have to, let's see what our resources page looks like. We have our welcome.php in here, and probably, yeah, it looks like everything's written in Tailwind for the CSS. That's fine. We're not really going to use any one that way, but what we can do here is we'll say settings / index.blade.php. All right. Say this is the settings section. Do another file in here, which will be scheduling / index.blade.php. And a third one, which will be customers. So .php. All right. Not going to get too fancy here with shared, with breaking out our actual template in here. The only thing I'm going to do is we'll do a single. Oops. We'll set up something with the ID of app, and then we'll do router-view in there. Let's see here. So which one is this one? This one is scheduling. Okay, settings. And again, and then router-view. We don't really need to do the backslash in there, but that's okay. And then this one is going to be customers. And again, app and router-view. Oops. Okay. Now the other thing we need to do is we do need to load in our script tag here, and basically, say / and we're going to load in, we'll say JS / customers.js. All right. Again, and then this one is going to be JS / scheduling.js. Now we're doing a lot of things at once here. So so if it's not too clear by the end of this, definitely go back and watch the video again. But yeah, we'll say settings.js. Okay. Now what we need to do is set up these files. So I'm going to open up my Webpack mix.js stuff in here. I'll leave that alone. We might throw some errors. I can't remember how I set this up last time, but I do think we have to use the Vue extension. So we'll see what happens when we actually run npm run watch. But in the meantime, we'll say resources /js settings.js. And okay, then this is going to be put to the public folder /js settings.js. Customers and scheduling, go in there. And then we need to create the files, otherwise we're going to throw errors in here. So settings.js. Oops, settings. So let's we'll just console log for each of these pages. Loaded settings page. New file. Customers.js. Loaded customers page. Scheduling.js. Loaded scheduling page. Okay. Okay, so I mean, we will come back to all of these. Okay. And deal with them. Now let's see what we're missing in terms of loaders, things like that. npm run watch. Uh-oh. Mix is not recognized as an internal or external command. All right, so let's see a couple of things here. It might be my cache that's causing me issues. For now, let's just go npm. I'll just install the latest version of Laravel Mix. Make sure I have that. Okay, it looks like we ran into another issue. Let's just see if we're missing anything from the package. Normally, my understanding was anyways that the Laravel installer actually installs everything for you, runs npm install, but maybe that wasn't the case here, so we'll do that here now. Okay. Now, maybe you didn't have this problem when you actually went to run watch, because, yes, I do. But with the various development, because I use this computer as well for most of my development work, so. Okay, well, see if anything was fixed by that. Probably not, but all right. So that I don't know if that worked for me either. Probably not. Pending all this, we can go ahead and what was the last thing I ran here? No. We'll clear my cache, see what happens there. All right. npm. All right, let's see what happens with this. All right, so I think I took too much for granted here, but the solution is actually to run npm install webpack. Okay, I've already done that, and then you can probably also install webpack CLI. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but I did that before webpack. But anyways, and then yeah, we can go npm run watch, and you're good to go. Now, what we'll do here is we'll serve our application up using PHP Artisan Serve. I'm going to pull it up in my browser over here. All right. We brought this, and let's see what happens here. We'll say settings, and we'll check out our console so we can see loaded settings page. What's another example? We had customers. Oh, let's go check our web.php customers. Try that again. There we go. Loaded the customers page, and then scheduling. Okay, great. So we know. So basically, we know in here that it's loading in our JavaScript file. So that's fantastic for now. All right. Now let's see here. So also on these pages, we will probably want to, I mean, we could load things in a variety of different ways. One, in our actual settings.js page, we could load in another file that handles our authentication. I'm not going to look at that here today, but I'm just going to show you basically how things work with Vue. So we know we have Vue in there. We should also probably go and install. We'll open up a new terminal here. No, npm install Vue-router. I think that's what it is anyways. All right. And then we can go import. And that's imported there. I'm going to attach Vue to the window object, so we have access to it in other files as well. Okay. If we do, and we'll say const app equals new Vue mount, and we'll mount that on the app file in there, and then we'll have to pass through some additional things in here as well, like our router and whatnot. Under Vue here, we'll go vue.use. We'll bring in Vue-router. Okay. Actually, I do want to use more modern syntax, I suppose. I don't know what version of Vue we installed. Let's go check that out here. In our package.json. Okay, we installed version 2. That's fine. The principle is the same here, so not a big deal. A lot of applications we spin up anyways are still using Vue 2 or Vue as well. But what we do need to do in here is we need to create a routes file, and we'll just create 2 paths, just so you can see how things work with the extension still loading in the file. So in this case, we do need to specify, so this one is the settings page. So we do need to specify settings in there, and then we need to bring in some kind of a component. And we'll just call this our settings home component. All right, we'll do another one down here, and we're going to say settings profile. And then I might say settings profile component in here. We'll have to create these files, right, as well. In here, and then what we need to do is actually instantiate a router. So we need to create our router. So we'll say Vue-router create router, and we're going to activate history mode so we don't actually have to use the slashes, because that just looks ugly and whatnot. So no, actually, you know what? Let's see here. See if this still works. History, all right, and then we need to bring in our routes from here. Okay. There we go. Syntactically, there's other ways to manage that as well. Put router in there. Okay. And we should be good to go on this one, except now, of course, we need to, you can see we're probably throwing errors in here. No, we are not, but we should be throwing errors in here. We'll say import settings home from, let's see here, we'll create a components folder and create a settings folder within there, and then we'll say settings home dot view. We'll say settings profile dot view. Okay. And we throw 2 errors. Okay, that's good. That's what we want to see. We'll say components slash settings, and then we'll say settings home.view. And we'll do settings profile.view as well. Okay. And now you can see that we're actually returning stuff, so this is good. Make this one really simple. Do have to put a root component in there because we're not Vue 3 on this, but and I'm just going to say like we'll say this is the settings homepage, and okay, what's going on? May need an appropriate loader for this one. Let's go back to our webpack.js.mix file. Probably going to have to download the loader for that. So that just basically what the loader does is it allows us to parse Vue files into transpile them into actual JavaScript files. Part of the JavaScript files. Additional dependencies needed. So my uncommenting Vue in here is obviously doing that automatically. Vue template compiler is what it's putting in. So that's great. And then we'll probably have to do npm run watch one more time. I'm glad that these errors and these issues came up. I've run into these errors and issues before on other projects, and you don't have to sit here pulling your hair out because you can't figure out what the issue is. So that's actually good, I think, in my opinion. Okay, now we should be able to go to our settings page. Webpack create router is not a function. Okay, no problem. Let's fix that up. Okay. So I think the issue is in our package.json file, see, Vue router is matched to version 3. So version 4 allows us to use that Vue router. Let me see here. Where were we? Settings page, yeah. So instead of create router, it's just going to be new Vue router. And then we have our mode for history, and then we have routes and routes in there. Okay, let's see if that helps us here. Great. Okay, so this is the settings homepage. Now let's see, what was our other route in here? Profile. Okay, great. This is the settings profile page. So you can see here that Laravel is allowing Vue router to take over from here. It is important that you prepend this as well. And now with history mode, the other nice thing is we can actually load that page in separate unto itself, as opposed to having to go to it from another page that passes various props in it. So we're good there. So you can see how that works. Now it's just a matter of going in and setting up the other 2 pages in there. So let's go down to customers.js. I mean, really at this point you understand how these actually work, right? So we'll say import Vue from Vue, import Vue router from Vue-router. And we may as well import our various modules. So we'll say customers home module or file, which will be components. Home.view. All right. Let's say instead of customers home, customers create. Okay, we'll say create page in there. Excuse the naming conventions. Not a big deal. So we need to use Vue router in here. All right. We'll say window.view. I find it's a good, with some of these like Axios and Vue, often I do attach it to the window. If I need a view, I probably need less than view router, so that's not an issue. Say view in there. Okay, so again, we'll create our routes file. And path, again, it's important we have to prepend it with customers for this particular route. And we'll say component is going to be customer home. And customer, actually, you know what? We'll do customer profile in here. Okay. We'll say we'll instantiate our router. Again, mode needs to be history mode. And our routes. And then we'll say const app equals new view. And we can go router. And we can go mount that in the app aria. All right, what's the issue we have here? Okay, good. Now we just have to add customers home. All right, and customers profile. So components, new file, customers / customer home.view. Pardon me. I actually have to rename that in there. Customers home.view. All right, and then customers profile here. Template div, h1, customers home. All right. Customers profile. Okay, so what's going on? Again, my inability to spell. There we go. Okay, so those two files are now set up for us in the customers JS. Quick review, view.use, view router. We pulled all our dependencies in. We pull our individual components in. All right. View, we have our routes specifically, new view router, mode, routes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now we should be able to go and customers, great. Okay. And customers. Okay, so that's how that works. I think you can do the rest, the rest on your own. But just to kind of inculcate this, we will do it for the scheduling app as well. So again, we're going to import view from view. We're going to import, oopsie daisy, view router from view-router. Let's import, we're in the scheduling, so we'll say the scheduling home component. No, sorry. Scheduling home.view. Import scheduling. What would be something that we could add to there? Scheduling create from. scheduling create.view, and again, my spelling. But you know, you can tell I'm trying to work pretty fast here. So we'll go view.use, and we'll use view router in our application. Say window.view equals view, so we have access to that down the road. And then what else do we need to do? Const routes. So I'm going to pass through an array here. Scheduling. Okay, great. Component will be scheduling home. Let's do this. We'll say scheduling not profile. Scheduling create. Create. Okay, great. Router equals new view router. Again, mode, history. You're going to do this slightly different in view 3, but the idea is the same that we deal with here. And you'd be surprised how many new applications are still being written in view 2. In fact, when you use the view CLI to instantiate your projects, the default happens to be view 2. But it is definitely worth it to use the newest and the latest as well, because typically there's optimizations around speed that you might want to take advantage of. So, okay, and then we'll bring in our routes file, and then we will instantiate const app equals new view, and we need to put in router in there. Hashtag app. Okay, now we need to obviously bring these in, scheduling home and scheduling create. So component, scheduling home, scheduling create. Okay, new file. So scheduling / all right. All right, and then, oops. Okay, so this should work now, we hope. Okay, so nothing loaded in here, but you can see, so it doesn't throw like a 404. So you have to create your own 404 pages, obviously, when you're working with Vue and Vue Router. But you can see it's still going to the component for anything after this in particular. So let's find out where that endpoint is supposed to go. Oops, daisy, schedule and create. Okay, now you can see schedule and create. Okay, so I hope this sheds some light on how you would set up a multi-spa. It's basically like setting up individual little, setting up individual files in there, right? But there are probably, where you're going to share utilities, things like that. You're going to do that over in the apps folders, in the app.js file right here. You see that pulls in Bootstrap. So if we pull this in at the beginning of our project, definitely something we want to do in all of those pages, is to pull in JS app.js. Then you're going to have access in each of those pages to those utilities. So, for example, in there, I might want to check, is the user authenticated? So I might actually, even without using Vue in there, I might run my authentication through the app by, checking, okay, well, basically so this is just one example of what you would run in each app, in each of them when you load up the individual multi-spa and you try to authenticate them. You might want to say, local storage .get item, and we might say like, bearer _ token if you're using something like, passport, right? Where you have to pass along the bearer token. If it is, then, we probably go axios.get, and well, we don't need this, but because that's brought into our bootstrap file. Actually, what we can do is we could put this in the bootstrap file instead, right? Because that's already brought in. We have access to it from the window object. And then in here, you might have like, API / whatever the API route is in that. You put in here, and you might say, users authenticated, and then, if it's all good, right, like, like, do nothing. You wouldn't do nothing. Typically, you would attach something to, maybe if you have a store for Vuex, something like that, then you might do that in there. What's another example? If you don't, right, like if they're not authenticated, then, we might want to do something like, send them over to the login page to then get their credentials. So that's one example of what you might want to do in here. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this was enlightening. At least showed you how to go about doing multi-spas for your application and the advantages therein. Depending on the type of application it is, depending on what kind of users you have, like, if they're users that need access to the application, that could load the application in once and they can wait extra amount of time to do that, then that's good. If you're sharing your code base, like, say you have a stack where you're using React Native and you're using, React on the front end as well, then it makes sense. It might make more sense for the application to get all loaded at once. It all depends, again, on how big the application is. But hope you found it useful. Look forward to your comments. If you have any questions, let me know. And I will probably put this up on GitHub, and you guys can check out the code in there.